About 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, we all got up. The whole boat bent toward her because everybody went out. Everybody. She was beautiful, with the sunshine so bright and so big, and everybody was crying. The captain came and said, "Please, everybody, we should move a little bit to the center." But nobody would move.
The thrill was unbelievable, but always the fear, because you have to go through Ellis Island. I heard all kinds of things that they would tell you on the boat. My God, I said, I hope they're not going to send me back. Joseph DeLacy.
For decades, immigrants to New York had come through Castle Garden, a ramshackle state-run depot at the foot of Manhattan. But by 1890, the one-time concert hall had been completely overwhelmed by the tidal wave of new immigrants. And work had begun on a massive new federal installation, far out in the harbor, on an abandoned ammunition dump called Ellis Island. On December 17, 1900, the massive complex of brick, stone, and steel was finally complete. Built to accommodate 500,000 people a year, it was soon handling twice that number, sometimes as many as 12,000 a day. In 30 years, 12 million people would stream through the great echoing registry room, hoping to find sanctuary and a new beginning in America. More than 4 million of them would settle permanently in New York, tripling its population in less than a single lifetime.
Immigration made us huge. You could never have bred yourself into 8 million people in 50 years. Immigration did it. It also made for an industrial city. The people who were arriving were from the farms in the main, arriving here in curious reversals. It was when the wheat from Kansas began arriving in the Baltic that peasant population there became surplus. They turned around, arrived here.
On disembarking, the Pilgrims entered a vast, bewildering, impersonal machine, an assembly line for processing immigrants. With numbered tags pinned to their clothes, they were swiftly herded into long lines, then ushered inside the main building by harried immigration officials, who barked orders at them in dozens of different tongues. Inspectors were required by law to turn back polygamists, paupers, criminals, and the mentally ill, as well as anyone with a heart condition, or a physical disability, or a contagious disease. The inspections were brusque, irreversible, and carried out with astonishing speed. On the busiest days, the examiners had less than 6 seconds to detect any one of 60 conditions. The unlucky ones were swiftly removed from the line without explanation and sent to special examination rooms with chalk letters hastily scrawled on their coats. L for lameness, C for conjunctivitis, H for heart problems, X for suspected insanity. The examination for trachoma, an incurable disease of the eye, was particularly traumatic. Anyone infected was sent back. 25-year-old Fiorello LaGuardia, working as an interpreter on Ellis Island to pay his way through law school, never forgot the harrowing scenes that ensued.
Sometimes, if it was a young child who suffered from trachoma, one of the parents had to return to the native country with the rejected member of the family. When they learned their fate, they were stunned. They had never felt ill. They had never heard the word trachoma. They could see all right, and they had no homes to return to. Fiorello LaGuardia.
For the majority who passed the medical exam, the last hurdle was the registry room, where the final interrogation was held. the nearest earthly likeness, one man said, to the final day of judgment. In rapid succession, each immigrant was asked to state his or her name, place of birth, destination, and occupation, how much money he or she had, whether he or she had ever been in jail or had ever been an anarchist. No immigrant's name was ever known to have been changed by the inspectors at Ellis Island, who merely confirmed information already before them in the ship's manifest. For 80% of the newcomers, the harrowing experience was over in 4 or 5 hours. And in the end, fewer than 1 in 50 were denied entrance to America. Without ceremony or congratulation, the new arrivals were curtly waved down a flight of stairs toward the exit, where, at a place called the Kissing Post, after separations that had sometimes lasted months or years, they were finally met by family and friends.
The Italian kisses his little children, but scarcely speaks to his wife. The Hungarian and Slavish people put their arms around one another and weep. The Jew of all countries kisses his wife and children as though he had all the kisses in the world and intended to use them all up quick.
Most of the immigrants quickly dispersed to distant towns and cities around the country. But for 1 in 4 of the new arrivals, the final destination was a 15-minute ferry ride away, on an island many of them would never leave again. On board the ferry, approaching the battery, they stood in wonder at the last and most extraordinary sight of all. An astonishing vision that seemed to corroborate everything they hoped the new world might be.
Everybody was looking at Manhattan, and I must admit, that sight I don't think I will ever forget.
I thought I was in heaven. My God, was this a city on earth or a city in heaven?